Hello, everybody. This is Empowering Democracy, and this is also another Dump the Corruption show. I'm sorry about my background. The blurring background seems to be working on StreamYard today, but my normal background doesn't seem to be. I'll try it once more, see if I can't get into that mode, but it looks like that's not going to work. So I'll be content with simply blurring the background. And we'll get on with it. Okay. Something appeared on Twitter. Someone took a look at my rule for dump the corruption, the voting rule, okay, for dump the corruption, and proposed, an alternative for it that he believed was more positive. I think he was looking for something more positive. He wanted to do something that was that advised people to vote for something, rather than against them. I guess on the theory of the power of positive thinking as opposed to negative thinking. But anyway, I'm going to show you what the Twitter exchange was about. It started with me quote tweeting, a tweet from Laura Fielding, my friend, and the head of the Red Berets. And you notice I'm wearing a red beret. Okay, so Laura says, how many of you out there still believe that a Medicare for all or single payer is still an achievable goal? I'm genuinely curious. Thoughts, comments. Okay, welcome. I do have one related side agenda, and that is that you'll see my pinned tweet. So, and consider sharing. So here are the polls. Here are the results of the poll she took. 56.3% said, yes, it's a matter of time. 35.1% said, no, we are too far gone. 8.7%, I'm not sure. And 0% said the status quo was fine. I thought that was interesting. Of course, there was nothing random about this poll. But still, I thought it was significant that 0% said that the status quo was fine. But I quote tweeted that, and I said in reply, I hope you're seeing all this. I said, yes, it's achievable, but we do have to do hashtag dump the corruption first by following the rule below. Of course, I was very interested in this opportunity to get the rule onto Twitter again, which I do continuously or frequently anyway. The rule: vote against every candidate except those who won't take money from wealthy corps, individuals, PACs, or party committees, and who repudiate all super PAC support. So that was my tweet. Okay. Now, Laura replied to the tweet by retweeting it and by liking it. So she was kind of in agreement with what I said. However, there was a gentleman. Hang on a second. Let me go on to Facebook here and make sure I'm shared on Facebook. That I'm shared to the public on Facebook, because that affects attendance on Facebook. if you share to the public. So do that. And then let me present this tweet, which quote tweeted me. And this gentleman, ECSD, it comments, whatIwanttoknow.org, said, I suggest rephrasing the rule as what to do, not what not to do. Yes, I know a lot of people like to do that better, but sometimes I like to take the negative route. So the gentleman suggested only vote for candidates who don't take money from PACs, the rich, okay, and also corporations. Okay, so I quote tweeted that in reply. I believe I quote tweeted it. Okay, in reply. I added this string, okay, of tweets, and I said, let me share this, present. So I shared this and said, sorry, taking me a little while to get to it. And so I said, one, thank you for the suggestion. This is actually a little tweet storm, but my formulation deliberately emphasizes, okay, the negative. I want people to understand that they are cleaning house, voting against those who take big money, and in doing so, participating in creating a prohibition against taking that money! Exclamation points. Then in tweet number 2, I said, the negative orientation also expresses the outrage people may feel about the political system being bought by big money. I'm very much interested in that. I feel that there's a sub rosa feeling among people, okay, across the political system. There's great resentment of the role of big money in the system, that people are aware that big money has taken over the system, and that they are angry, and that they want to express their outrage with activity that is negative, okay, that is against the people who are taking the big money. I don't want dump the corruption to lose that quality of doing something against what is going on. So now, tweet 3, your formulation also doesn't distinguish between wealthy corporations, individuals and PACs, and poor ones. Mine does, at least implicitly. That is in my rule. Okay, what's emphasized is to vote against taking money from corps, individuals, and PACs, okay, that are wealthy. I don't care if individuals take money uh, from corporations, from individuals, and PACs that have extremely little money and make only very small contributions. I mean, that's fine as long as the contributions are small. They're not going to buy the representatives. So the problem is, okay, is the large contributions. And my fourth tweet, lastly, your proposal excludes prohibitions against money from party committees and repudiation of money spent by wealthy super PACs. Corporations and the rich often use party committees to, quote, wash, unquote, large contributions from PACs, the rich, and corporations. That's too big a loophole, okay, to live with. And my fifth tweet was, uh, and of course, money spent by super PACs is having a huge impact in biasing elections against those super PACs oppose. So creating a bias against what they're doing is essential to building a more democratic system. And there may have been some replies to this tweet storm. It looks like there was some. I haven't had time to look at those. And I'm not going to do it, okay, right now. But I wanted to apprise you of this alternative, okay, to the rule and to explain the reasons why I don't think it's a good alternative. So let me stop sharing what I have here and go on to the next segment of tonight's show. Okay, this segment is motivated by what happened in Maine, where the Secretary of State of Maine, Shenna Bellows, barred Trump from the primary ballot, okay, in Maine. So here's the Common Dreams article on that. There, okay, is a photo, okay, of Shenna Bellows. When she was a Democratic Maine state senator, speaking at a hearing in Augusta, Maine on May 2nd, 2017. So she's, I guess that's the only photo of her they could find, but that was 6 years ago. Actually more like 6.5 years ago. Quote, he is not qualified, unquote. Maine bars Trump from the primary ballot. The weight of the evidence makes clear that Mr. Trump was aware that the tinder laid by his multi-month effort to delegitimize the Democratic election and then chose to light a match, unquote. This piece is by Jessica Corbett. It was written on December 28th, 2023. Excuse me. Maine Democratic Secretary of State Shenna Bellows on Thursday barred former U.S. President Trump from the Republican 2024 primary ballot, determining that, quote, he is not qualified to hold the office of the president under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, unquote, to the country's Constitution. Despite several ongoing criminal cases, Trump is currently the Republican front-runner for next year's presidential contest. This is according to polls, of course, in which Democratic President Joe Biden, who beat him in 2020, is seeking re-election. I don't know what I want to say about that. I think that's a huge mistake. I think I have reasons why I think Joe Biden was a worse president than Trump. There's room for disagreement there, but I'm not going to go into that right now. but he was has been a terrible president. Terrible president. Anyway, the decision in Maine comes just weeks away from the Iowa caucuses, and amid multiple legal battles aiming to boot Trump from ballots for inciting the January 6, 2021 insurrection, including in Colorado, where the state Supreme Court disqualified him last week, a decision that could soon be reviewed by the U.S. Supreme Court, to which he appointed 3 justices. Bellows' move, which will ultimately be decided in the courts, came in response to 3 challenges filed to the nomination of Donald Trump, 2 based on the 14th Amendment and 1 citing the 22nd Amendment. The former bars anyone who has taken an oath to the Constitution and then engaged in insurrection from holding office again, while the latter sets a 2-term limit for presidents. The Maine official said Thursday that, quote, there appears to be no dispute between any of the parties that President Biden prevailed over Mr. Trump. Therefore, given Mr. Trump has only won a single election for president, he is not barred from being elected to the same office again under the 22nd Amendment, unquote. So here she's looking at the complainants themselves, and none of the 3 challenges try to take the position that President Trump had won the 2020 election. So he couldn't be barred on grounds that he already had been elected to a second term, at least given the particular facts of this particular challenge. So she says, however, the 14th Amendment arguments, regarding the 14th Amendment argument, she found that, quote, the record establishes that Mr. Trump, over the course of several months, and culminating on January 6, 2021, used a false narrative of election fraud to inflame his supporters and direct them to the Capitol to prevent certification of the 2020 election and the peaceful transfer of power, unquote. That's a quote, of course, from Shenna Bellows. And quote again from her, I likewise conclude that Mr. Trump was aware of the likelihood for violence and at least initially supported its use, given he both encouraged it with incendiary rhetoric and took no timely action to stop it, unquote, she wrote in her 34-page decision. And here's a tweet from Chris Hayes, all in with Chris Hayes, at Ellie NYC. That is Ellie. Yes, it's Ellie Mistal, the justice correspondent for The Nation, on Maine disqualifying Trump from the state ballot. Quote, I would like, if she's listening, but Nikki Haley to lean in and listen real close to what I'm about to say, because the Civil War was about slavery. But this right here, this, my friend, is about states' rights, unquote. Something that Nikki Haley, of course, is usually a big proponent of, but not here. Ellie Misto is pointing to the hypocrisy. I'm going to play that.
And I want to be really clear about this. I would like, if she's listening, Nikki Haley to lean in and listen real close to what I'm about to say, because the Civil War was about slavery. But this right here, this, my friend, is about states' rights. Like, that's what's actually going on here. All the Maine Secretary of State is saying is that she has the authority to protect the integrity of the Maine ballot.
Sorry about all this buffering going on. I can't do anything about it.
According to the laws of Maine, that is a straight up states' rights issue, right? This is not really about the kind of larger federal concerns that some people want to bring into it. This is whether or not Maine or
I'm going to see if I can do something about this. Hang on a second.
And I want to be really clear about this. I would like, if she's listening, have control over their ballot. As I've said many times on this show and on others, we do not have one federal election system. We have 50 federal election systems, all determined by each individual state. Now, frankly, I don't like it that way. I'd rather have just one system. But Republicans have determined and demanded that we have a 50-state solution to where every state has to have their own election rules. The Maine Secretary of State is applying Maine's election rules to the Maine ballot. Republicans should love this.
So that was a real gotcha. And what Elie Mystal was doing in that situation, he was talking to the Supreme Court, which, of course, is very likely to weigh in on this particular subject. And he's laying down a challenge for them. And is basically saying, well, you defenders of states' rights in various contexts, such as, for example, the abortion context, and in certain other contexts. Okay, so what are you going to do now? According to states' rights, the Secretary of State should have the authority to bar Trump, your man, from this ballot. So are you going to be consistent, or are you going to be hypocritical when you come to make this decision? So, anyway, going on with the article, Bellows stressed that, quote, Mr. Trump's occasional requests that rioters be peaceful and support law enforcement do not immunize his actions. A brief call to obey the law does not erase conduct over the course of months, culminating in his speech on the ellipse. The weight of the evidence makes clear that Mr. Trump was aware of the tinder laid by his multi-month effort to delegitimize a democratic election and then chose to light a match, unquote. Pretty good quote from Shenna Bellows. She goes on, quote, I am mindful that no Secretary of State has ever deprived the presidential candidate of ballot access based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I'm also mindful, however, that no presidential candidate has ever before engaged in insurrection, unquote. Citing a relevant law, Bellows said that, quote, the oath I swore to uphold the Constitution comes first, above all, and my duty under Maine's election laws when presented with a Section 336 challenge is to ensure that candidates who appear on the primary ballot are qualified for the office they seek. Quote, again, the events of January 6, 2021 are unprecedented and tragic, unquote, she added. Quote again, they were an attack not only upon the Capitol and government officials, but also an attack on the rule of law. The evidence here demonstrates that they occurred at the behest of and with the knowledge and support of the outgoing president. The U.S. Constitution does not tolerate an assault on the foundations of our government, and Section 336 requires me to act in response. So she's saying it's her duty under the national constitution and under Section 336 of Maine law, her duty to not be tolerant of an assault on the foundations of our government. She says to fulfill her obligations under her office and the oath that she took, she has to rule on this according to her perceptions of whether Trump was guilty, of insurrection. Now, she's not a court. She's a Secretary of State. But there's nothing in the 14th Amendment that says that she has to wait for conviction. What it says is that she has to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States in accordance with her oath and according to the best of her ability based on what she believes. She obviously believes that the record shows that Trump was guilty, of insurrection. And therefore, since she is the state officer who's required to evaluate whether someone is eligible for the ballot or not, that her duty is to declare that as she sees it, he is not eligible for the ballot. Now, all this, this isn't some crazy lawfare. It's not some strange, and prejudiced thing. She is obligated to make a finding here by these challenges. And she must do it according to what she believes is the proper response. She cannot say, since there's been no court decision on this subject, therefore, I'm going to decide in favor of Trump. She cannot say that. That's not relevant. What's relevant is she has a duty to make a finding, and she has a duty to make the finding according to her perceptions of what the situation is. Secretary suspended the effect of her decision until the Maine Superior Court rules on any appeal or the appeal period expires. In a lengthy statement noting similar fights in other states, Trump campaign spokesperson Stephen Chung said that, quote, "We'll quickly file a legal objection in the state court to prevent this atrocious decision in Maine from taking effect." He also took aim at Bellows, saying that, quote, "The Maine Secretary of State is a former ACLU attorney, a virulent leftist, and a hyper-partisan Biden-supporting Democrat." What I got to say there is if she were a virulent leftist, she certainly wouldn't be a hyper-partisan Biden-supporting Democrat. Those two things are in contradiction, except for an idiot like Stephen Chung, who doesn't know where the various segments of the left actually lie. Biden is a right-center president in the view of the virulent leftists. Not only that, in the view of the virulent leftists, Joe Biden's a war criminal at this point. Also, ACLU attorneys are not generally virulent leftists. That's just a play to the partisans of Donald Trump, who think that everybody who's opposed to Trump is a virulent leftist. That's all that is. Former U.S. Labor Secretary Robert Reich, now professor at University of California, Berkeley, said on social media that the U.S. Supreme Court, quote, "will surely have the final word." Yeah, sure, they will have the final word. They'll have to take it up. Citizens for Ethics, also known as CREW, says, breaking, following our historic victory in the Colorado 14th Amendment case, the Maine Secretary of State has ruled Donald Trump is ineligible to appear on the ballot. That makes two. so far. That was a tweet. Common Dreams reported earlier Thursday the government watchdog Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, or CREW, and law firms representing 6 Republican and unaffiliated Colorado voters who brought 14th Amendment challenge in the state are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to weigh in on their case by February 11th, given the timeline for mailing ballots. Law dorks Chris Geidner said Thursday that a Supreme Court review, quote, is made almost certain given a new ruling from Maine Secretary of State, unquote. Excuse me a second while I take some pills. So I think what the logic that was laid out by Shenabellos makes very, very clear that if challenges come up in other states between now and the time the Supreme Court gets a hold of this, what Shenabellos did was to outline the logic that secretaries of state should use to decide the case. She's made clear that it is their duty to make a decision. It is their duty to make a judgment as to whether Trump is guilty, of insurrection. Now, there are many secretaries of state that may rule that, in their opinion, he's not guilty, and therefore he should be on the primary ballot. That's likely to be the finding in, I don't know, maybe 20 states, maybe 25 states, maybe 30 states. I don't know. These first 2 findings may be findings that are proven to be, in the minority of states. And to be clear, even if Trump is barred from the ballot, even in those 2 states, since those 2 states were very likely, I shouldn't put Maine, I shouldn't be certain about Maine going in the Democratic category in 2024. I think Maine is, at this point, probably a swing state. It's probably possible for the Republicans to win, in Maine. So if Trump, is off the ballot, it makes it more likely, that a Democrat would win, in Maine. But Maine has very few electoral votes, probably not enough to swing, this election one way or another. So we have to wait to see what goes on, in other states. But let me go on here. I think I'm missing some stuff here. I think I closed something I shouldn't have closed. Let me go back to... I closed my Twitter page, and I need to bring that up now. So, what I want to do now is go on to some exchanges about the Shenabellos decision that occurred on Twitter. So, let me go down to the first of these. So here's a tweet, from Robert Hockett, who quote tweeted somebody else, guy by the name of Arthur Eckert, on December 29th, who was replying to 47 other people. And what he said, the Maine Secretary of State, a Democrat, of course, banned people from voting for Trump. The insurrection narrative works for them because they can use lawfare on Trump and also distract people from the real insurrection, the stolen election. Okay? That, okay, is Arthur Eckert's opinion. He got a reply from Robert C. Hockett, who's a distinguished professor of law at the Cornell Law School. And Bob Hockett says, laugh out loud, just as she would, quote, ban people from voting for, unquote, Clinton, Bush, or Obama now under the 22nd Amendment. Sad, I know. But you don't get to choose which bits of the Constitution to abide by. Note also, while at it, the Colorado plaintiffs were Republican, as is the judge who had the deciding vote in Colorado, Judge Ludwig. So, so Robert felt compelled to give us that answer. So I quote tweeted what Robert said. And I said, the Maine secretary swore to uphold the Constitution. Under it, she has the duty to determine eligibility to run for office. What could she do then, other than to apply her own judgment about whether Trump had engaged, in insurrection? And so that was my quote tweet of the quote from Robert, that I just read. Then I added to that tweet, I'm sure her judgment would have been different if Trump had done everything he could to get a rapid trial verdict and exoneration on the insurrection charge. But instead, his lawyers have delayed as much as they can in hopes that he will be reelected and will not have to stand trial. So it is actually Trump's fault. State level officers have the opportunity and the duty to decide whether he is eligible to run. Since if he had been exonerated in the years since the alleged violation, folks, it's now December 2023, nearly 3 years have passed. There would be no issue that they have the duty to resolve with their own judgment. That is, if he had been exonerated in court, instead of delaying proceedings for 3 years, he might have gotten his wish and been exonerated in court. But instead, he didn't want to stand trial. He wanted to escape any possibility of conviction by delaying and delaying, and delaying. And because he chose to do that, now the secretaries of state in various states have the opportunity to bar him from the ballot. They wouldn't have had that opportunity if he had moved for a very quick trial, since he's evidently so sure that he's innocent. And since his partisans are so sure that he's innocent, or so sure that even if he's not innocent, that somehow he should be allowed to run again, to allow him to run again, though, would be a violation of the 14th Amendment. It excludes his running again. Of course, Congress can make him eligible again, but the Republicans don't have the votes in Congress to do that. That's the problem. So that was a little tweet storm of mine to comment on that particular subject. Okay, but then I did get a reply from somebody. Hey, let me make sure I've gotten all of that. I'm not sure that I've gotten all of that yet. Oh yeah, there was another tweet, okay, from Bob Hockett. This time, it was a quote tweet. I'm showing that on the screen now. This was a quote tweet of his in relation to a tweet by Mike Lee, who said, "Not one person has been charged with insurrection in connection with January 6th. Not period, even period one, but period." And he also said more. What was that he said? Libs still insist on keeping Trump off the ballot under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. Even if he were guilty of insurrection, he isn't. That provision still won't apply to him. And Robert Hockett, who, remember again, is distinguished professor of law. He has a chair in the law school at Cornell University. He says the 14th Amendment does not require criminal charges. It requires only, as a matter of due process, a finding of fact by a state-authorized fact-finding authority. If you are a lawyer, you know this and are accordingly lying. If you do not know this, you are lying about being a lawyer. Pretty trenchant reply from Robert. So I said in a quote tweet, "Hi, Bob. Thanks for this. I took a similar position myself in this video." And I linked, okay, to my video. I forget if it was last week or the week before that, the one on the Trump challenge. And I said, "I don't understand why people think Trump must be convicted before he can be prohibited from running. Clearly, they haven't read the 14th Amendment." I don't know if I got a reply from Bob on that one. No, I didn't get a reply. I did get a like, and I did get a retweet on it, which is probably from Bob. So, I didn't want to show you these Twitter exchanges. I did get a reply from someone who didn't like my tweets concerning Trump. Let me see if I can find that for you. Yes, this was from someone known, okay, as Patriot at the USA 76 Patriot, replying to Joe Firestone, PhD. Oh, God. He replied to me saying, "You could be the dumbest person on Twitter." And I replied to him saying, I don't usually engage in this kind back and forth, at least, okay, not lately, but I have been getting annoyed lately about things. Anyway, I did reply to that one, and let's see what I said. I replied to him and I said, maybe, but judging from the total bullcrap investing your Twitter page, it's obvious the dubious honor of being the dumbest person on Twitter falls to you or one of the other morons trolling for either Trump or Biden. And I left 5 instances of rolling on the floor and laughing. Uh, so, anyway, that was my Twitter action. I guess I've got some more action coming from the Patriot, the self-styled Patriot, who evidently thinks no one else is a patriot except for himself. But I did get a couple of other notifications from him that I haven't been able to reply to yet, and he said, what did he say? Oh, yes. He said, and this, please wake up. Oh, so then he quote tweets something, okay, from Elon Musk about the problems, okay, of immigration we're having, which according to Musk is already overwhelming essential services in New York, Chicago, okay, and other cities. He says, listen to the biggest Trump hater on the planet and please wake up. Our country depends on you all waking up like him. And this is in one of the most severe documented cases of Trump derangement syndrome. Michael Rappaport has had a breakthrough moment. He may vote for Trump if Biden leads America into war with Iran. Well, I have no idea why he is replying to me in this vein, since I had already said that I was certainly against voting for Joe Biden. So I guess that would be my reply to that business. But let me go to a couple other things I wanted to cover tonight. There was another piece from Common Dreams. Under the rights and justice category. No, I didn't mean to do that. So I am not doing that. So there's only one more piece to cover. And that is a piece that occurs. It's about Shanna Bellows. I'm sharing it now. I think it's up there now. Yeah. There's a picture, okay, of Shanna Bellows. She was attending Pride Portland on June 21st, 2014. The headline is, Bellows is right. Use every tool available to defeat Trump. Trump is too dangerous to the future of the planet for us to play nice with people who never, ever play nice. This is by Nancy Browse for Common Dreams. Kudos to Shanna Bellows. Secretary of State in Maine has done what every Republican would have done in the current situation with the shoe on the other foot. If the Republicans had the opportunity to disqualify a candidate they consider an immediate threat to the survival of the world, there would be no restraint. When she used her power to disqualify former President Donald Trump from the 2024 ballot in Maine, she set an example that hopefully will wake up other Democrats. She runs the elections in Maine. Will she have the guts to stand up to a Trump appointment judge? should they overturn her decision? What does she have to do with that judge? I mean, I'm not sure what she means standing up to the Trump appointed judge. But Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution is crystal clear. Donald Trump is not qualified to run for or hold office in the United States. The language is very specific, and if we lived in a nation where fairness was valued, this would not even be a question. The situation we face now is that the Trump cult is ready, willing, and able to cheat in any and every way to take over power in the United States. Folks, okay, I'm afraid that I have to agree with that particular statement. If you don't agree with it, I'd like to see the evidence. But they've been making all kinds of statements lately, manifesting the idea that they're ready, willing, and able to cheat in any and every way to take over power in the United States. Anyway, Nancy Browse goes on and says, it's way past time for the center and the left to use every tool we have available. The hand-wringing and self-recrimination over prosecuting Trump for his many crimes has got to end. Even some on the left have been saying we have to defeat Trump at the ballot box instead of using his own actions. Should those who attempted to assassinate Hitler have waited until the next election? Oops, there was never going to be another election. Trump is too dangerous to the future of the planet for us to play nice with people who never, ever play nice. I mean, she's certainly right about Trumpists never, ever playing nice. Mostly Republicans never, ever play nice. But the Trumpists are the worst of the Republicans on this score. This current crop of Republicans is already guilty of an amazing array of dirty tricks in order to ensure long-term electoral power, and they hope for permanent minority rule over all of us. It was not too long ago the Republicans stole at least one, and some of us believe 2 seats on the Supreme Court in a completely immoral, unprecedented, and barely legal manner. In other words, they used lawfare to get those 2 seats. Yes, I think they did. This corrupt Supreme Court has stolen voting rights from black voters by gutting the Voting Rights Act. They have permitted what would be considered outrageous gerrymanders in swing states and pure red states to limit the voting of black citizens. There is no legal action, to demand more opportunities to vote when cities with a large black population are stripped of voting sites, so voters have to stand in line for 8 to 10 hours, while those of us in small towns and suburbs can waltz into the voting site, say howdy to our town clerk, vote, and leave in 10 minutes or less. I'm here to testify that one end of that is perfectly true. We can walk into our voting site, say various pleasantries to the people working at the desk, smile and grin and have a lot of fun, that we're being good citizens, and be out of there in 10 minutes or less. There are never any long lines that make us wait for more than 10 minutes. In Florida, nearly 60, and okay, this is in Virginia, in a suburb of Washington, D.C., a western suburb. It's probably 35 minutes out on a regular workday. In Florida, nearly 65% of the citizens voted in a referendum to restore voting rights to felons. The state has undermined it, with support from Trump-appointed criminals, also known as judges, by creating a new category of, quote, court fees, quote unquote, that these mostly poor and mostly non-white people are forced to pay in order to vote. The dirty tricks abound. When will we again see the demand that black voters cite the number of jelly beans in a jar in order to earn the right to the franchise? The irony that Donald Trump, who used countless tweets and statements to attack the eligibility of Barack Obama for the presidency, the quote, birther, unquote, nonsense, has now actually disqualified himself should not be left unstated. Whenever Trump defends his right to be on the ballot, his attacks on Obama should be pulled out from the past. Somebody must have explained the rules to qualify for the presidency to Trump, and he decided that because Barack Obama is not white, that made him an American. Okay, the Democrats and the left must be tougher. As 2024 begins, the coalition of those who understand the peril of another Trump term should be organizing poll watchers for every site with non-white voters. We need to be the eyes of the system. Lawyers or those trained by lawyers need to be available on call to assist those who are being denied the right to register or to vote. As terrible as this sounds, we need to be more like our opposition, but in a smart way. Trump and his crimes need to not only be called out every day in creative ways. Trump invents stupid names for his opponents. We need to begin inventing some smart ways to call out these guys for who they are. We need to make public Trump's most vile and violent insults every time they come out of his mouth. The corporate media and the court system has given this guy a pass. Almost anyone else would be serving time in prison for the constant death threats to those he dislikes. The press allows the lifelong racist Trump to call strong black women like Fani Willis and Letitia James racists without a direct challenge. Okay, a use of the term that is totally bogus, as true racism is part of a system of oppression of the powerless by the powerful. This nonsense needs to be countered whenever it comes out of his hateful mouth with tough talk about real racism. The fascist movement in the United States has come a very long way in the past 10 years. It is clear that the Kochs and the other oil, gas, and chemical barons have been planning this takeover for a long time. The Federalist Society, the Heritage Foundation, and lots of other secretive organizations, I don't know how secretive the Heritage Foundation is, have plowed the ground for a cruel, hateful, and corrupt Donald Trump. Large corporations have basically decided to go along with Trump in exchange for eliminating regulations and taxes. And these corporations largely own the media. So we, every one of us who is committed to protecting our ability to speak freely, to welcoming immigrants into our country, to believe in a multicultural democracy, had better get out and get voters to oppose Trump, because we may never get another chance. Well, I think a lot in that article was very well taken. I look forward to your comments on it, but I do think that the delays on the part of the Biden administration to go after Trump, to prosecute, and to convict him are very, very hard to forgive. I mean, Merrick Garland has been a scandal. He has just been a gutless wonder. He's afraid, and a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people are just afraid of the verbal violence coming from the Trump side. They are afraid to say things or do things in opposition to Trump because they're afraid of the storm of death threats and violent insults that they are going to get. So Merrick Garland has been allowing the intimidation of people who are critics of Trump and people who act against Trump in legal ways. That violence should be cracked down upon by the Justice Department, and by Garland. He took a long time to appoint Jack Smith, and he appointed Jack Smith to the prosecution of Donald Trump because he didn't have the guts to do it himself. Let's face it. He didn't want to get those violent death threats on the telephone. That, by the way, undoubtedly are going to go on to Shanna Bellows' phone, right now. So I'm done with that. Hi, Joe. Steve Wolfman says hello. Steve says hi, Kay. Kay says hi, Steve. Steve Wolfman says half of those people were feds. Uh, Steve, I'm sure there were some feds there, but I don't know that half of the people who were there on January 6th, okay, were feds. And I want to know how you know it. If you've got some references, I'd like to see the links, please. Steve says, I can't believe Doc got bogged down in this crap. Just let the people decide. We got bigger eggs to fry. Steve, the people are not free to decide. A lot of this decision between Trump and Biden is going to be made by money. First of all, there shouldn't even be a decision between Trump, and Biden. But the Democrats are rigging the election, the primary election, in favor of Biden. So we're going to get stuck with the Biden-Trump choice. Instead of having someone who will run a lot better than Donald Trump, the consultants in the Democratic Party, the people who control, the DNC, are forcing Biden down our throats. This is not a fair election. If you want to get rid of Trump, you need a fair election. This is not a fair election because the Democrats are doing that. It's not a fair election because everybody's bought. It is not a fair election. So the people are not deciding. What you are advocating for is a narrow choice situation where people decide between Biden and Trump in a situation where Biden obviously is unacceptable, and where Trump would obviously be unacceptable if people could remember back 3 or 4 years ago when the actions of Trump were killing literally millions of people. But people have tended to forget as we move forward in time. It's the devil who's currently victimizing you that counts. So just as Biden had the advantage in 2020 because Trump was the devil who was victimizing us, now it would be Trump who would have the advantage in 2024 because Biden is the devil who's been victimizing us. I don't want that kind of narrow choice. I don't want either of them nominated. Why do I say the Republican primary is rigged? It's rigged by the huge amount of money going for Trump. Of course Trump has a big advantage. He has more money than anybody else. He's going to win that primary. He's going to drown the others with his money. Nobody has the money he has to compete with him in that primary, Steve. So the people aren't going to decide, this election. It's going to be the money that's going to decide this election unless we dump the corruption going. Yes, we got bigger eggs to fry and bigger fish to fry too. And the bigger fish and the bigger eggs involve dump the corruption and getting that movement going. That's what we got to do. Between now and election time, which is less than a year, I don't know that we have any bigger eggs that we have the power to fry. And I emphasize that very, very heavily because what can we do? There are 3 or 4 people sitting at the top of the federal government who are currently making crazy decisions that can possibly get us into World War III. What can we do about this? Let's say the Republicans are successful in impeaching Biden. By the way, I hope they do impeach Biden. I want them to impeach Biden. But I'll tell you now, what can we do to get the Democrats to vote for a conviction so that we get rid of Biden? And what happens if we get rid of them? If we get rid of Biden, is Harris going to be any different? Well, we could impeach her too. Okay, but if we impeach her, who do we get then? We get Mike Johnson. Is Mike Johnson really going to cut funding for Israel? You kidding? The evangelical Christian who believes in the second coming, and that the Jews have to have total control, okay, of Palestine before the second coming can occur? You really want him to be president? But yeah, I am for impeaching and convicting Biden right now. That would be a way to stop this foreign policy. I do think that in such a situation and with such a conviction, that most likely the Congress would be very reluctant to pursue continued support, okay, of Israel. But I don't think we're going to get a conviction on Biden. I don't think there's any way. I don't think there's going to be a change in foreign policy. Not until 2025. It's going to be up to the Biden administration to decide to pull the rug out from under the Israelis so we don't get a ruinous war in Western Asia. That's what's going to happen. Now, we can pressure Biden. That is a big fish that we can try to fry, okay, right now. But that's what we can do. And that should be part of our campaign to get rid of both Biden and Trump for 2024, so we don't have this kind of mess again. So we can at least have an opportunity in a fair election to get a third party person who's not taking any big money into the presidency and into most of the Congress too. And that Epps guy, what Epps guy? Steve says good night. And Kay says, night, Steve. Kay says, okay, I'm going to bed. I love you all. Okay, so thanks, everybody. I think that's all the comments. So I think that I'm done for tonight. And I don't think I'm going to see you till Tuesday. I'll make every effort not to come back until Tuesday. I think I need a couple of days off. But thanks for coming for tonight, and thanks for staying. Bye.